Welcome to Story Up. This is a long form space for honest conversations about stories. The ones we live inside, the ones we carry for years, and the ones that continue shaping us even after they become books. I'm Dr. Marina Rivera, founder of Full Circle Press. I work closely with authors at many stages of their story's life, before a story is written, while it's being shaped, and after it's released into the world. Story Up exists because I believe that stories don't begin or end with a book. They shape how we see ourselves, how we make meaning, and how we move through the world, often long before they're written and long after they're shared. Here, I reflect on what it means to steward stories with care, responsibility, faith, and discernment, sometimes on my own and sometimes in conversations with authors whose stories are already out in the world. If you're holding a story that matters or living with the one that's still unfolding, you're in the right place. Good morning, everybody. Happy Saturday. It is unusual to be doing anything in this space on a Saturday because Saturday I do Sabbath and step away from all of the things. And I was going to just wait until Monday to record this, but I was just feeling, I don't know, I just kept feeling like this nudge, like just Marina, just go in there and get this out. And what I want to talk about today is how we can hold our stories with an open hand and not a closed fist. And I didn't come up with this idea. It's actually something I've heard like 3 or 4 times over the past couple weeks in context of like in different church settings, like watching a sermon or listening to a podcast, a faith-based podcast. But the concept is this idea that when God gives us blessings, we need to hold them with an open hand and not a closed fist. So hold them, steward them well, but don't hold them so tightly that they become like more of a burden than a blessing. And I wanted to talk about today just what happens when we do that with stories. And so I've been working with authors for many years, and I've had the privilege of walking alongside many authors as they take the stories that they've lived in their lives many times and that have lived in their hearts and then get them onto the page and then out into the world. And I have witnessed, and I have been, honestly, I've done this myself as well. I've witnessed experiences where authors will take these stories, these things that they feel like they're being called to write. Again, much of the work I do is nonfiction, but not all of it. Some of it is fiction. And they take it and they start to hold so tight to these stories that they don't want to share them with anybody, like don't even want to bring them to editing sessions, or they'll bring them to editing sessions and they'll be so um, uh, like set on how they think it's supposed to go that they become kind of like closed off from like feedback or any sort of flexibility in how the story might need to change to before it makes its way into the world. And then even I've had a lot of authors that hold so tight to their stories that then when it is time to release them into the world, there's like all this fear surrounding it. And I say this from a place of like no condemnation at all. Like I have been here myself. But I think it's just an interesting question about what happens when we hold our stories with an open hand instead of a closed fist. I think what can happen is we invite when we hold our stories with an open hand, we can invite other people into them, whether that's through like a coaching program, like a small group setting or a membership setting where like you come into a space and you share your stories with others, whether it's you being open to like whether we're open to feedback from others who have maybe a different perspective to add to our story. But when we hold our stories with an open hand, I think it gives them the space to breathe. And I think when our stories have space to breathe, it gives them the opportunity to make the impact that they were meant to have. It also, I think, puts them in perspective. And I'm going to speak for myself right now. I have had many times in my life where I've taken this thing, whether it be a story, a book, a business idea, a relationship, just anything, and I can hold so tight to it that it almost loses the life that it was intended to have. And looking back on it, I just ask myself with no condemnation, but just I wonder what would have happened if I would have given that thing a little bit more space to breathe. I would have held a little more loosely to it. I think that oftentimes in building businesses, we talk about being, solid with the goals, but flexible with the methods. And I think the same thing can be possible with our stories. I think if we're given a story, that we feel like for me, if I'm given a story and I feel like God has given this to me to share with the world, I do want to steward it well. I don't want to drop it all over the place. I want to hold it, but I want to hold it loosely. I want to hold it with open hands. And my just wondering is, do you all feel that do you have examples in your own life about times when you've taken something that's been given to you and maybe you're holding it with a clenched fist instead of an open hand, and what happens when we hold that with an open hand instead? I also think along with that is the wondering about when we hold it with an open hand, is it more than available to share with others? Again, and with authors, I talk a lot about like the stories that may have been given to us to share. They're ours to steward, but they're really not ours to keep. They're ours to share with others, because in sharing them, we might have been given something that might be somebody else's bridge to peace, or bridge to freedom, or bridge to an invitation to a relationship with Jesus, from my faith-based authors that are or faith-based storytellers, or just humans who are watching this. But when we're given something, it's ours to steward, not ours to just hold on to. And if we can hold it with that open hand, and then we can steward it well, we can then share it with those who it was meant to be shared with. What's crazy is as I'm recording this right now, I don't have any notes or anything. If you can't tell, I'm just really off the cuff here. But I'm giving myself grace because, number one, it's a Saturday morning. Number two, I am new to this YouTube space, and I have promised myself that I would show up authentically, and I would be open to being like getting feedback, and progressing and getting better at this space, with not assuming that I have to show up perfect on day one. I heard an author one time who's written like 70 books. I heard him speak from the stage, and he said, what do you think? How do you think my first book was? And people were like, oh, I'm sure it was good. And he was like, no, it was awful. The first one was not good at all. But I had to have a first one so that I could have a second one, and a third one, and a fourth one, and a fifth one, and a 70th one. And I know for many people who are writing books, you might only write one book in your lifetime. But I think in any creative pursuit that we're doing, we have to give ourselves permission to just show up authentically and not worry about getting it perfect or getting it all right. And going back to just the topic of the day, holding stories with an open hand, I think that also can be what can happen when we hold a story with an open hand, is we give it space to also grow and change. If we're holding something with a clenched fist, there's no room for growth, right? But we hold it with an open hand. And I don't know, this theme is something I'm thinking about in just different areas of my life. I'm thinking about it. I used to be a very regimented person. Like, my morning routine was like, I had like a 12-point checklist. I'm gonna do these 12 things in the morning before I do anything else, and I have to do them in this order. And I've even moved away from routines to having rhythms. Now my morning has a rhythm to it. There are 3 things that I am committing to doing in this season, and that could shift in the morning. I'm committing to movement. I'm committing to time in the Word of God. I'm committing to prayer. And I'm calling it my morning consecration time. And I don't always do the things in a particular order, and there's no particular length at which I have to do anything. But I know that when I start my morning that way, when I hold my morning that way with an open hand, the rest of my day tends to flow in a more peaceful way, right? And so even in moving in my life away from rituals and like very strict like routines to just rhythms, I am seeing the space that is creating for me to just be a little bit more flexible. And for some of you all, this is not for you, because I know there's some people out here who they don't have any problem being flexible. They don't have any problem holding loosely to things in life. They're like, what do you mean you're holding too tight to something? But for me, and for maybe some of people watching this as well, that hasn't been our journey. Our journey has been a one where we tend to take things and sometimes even covet them, and just I'm pausing here because I'm thinking about how to say this. Like, I think holding something well, and stewarding it well, and feeling a responsibility to take care of the things that we've been given. I don't think there's anything bad with that, wrong with that at all. Like, I think there's a beauty in that. Like, even think about some of the things that I may have held too tightly to in the past. Like, yeah, the impact of that might not have been like what I would have wanted it to be, but the intent of it really was to steward it well, right? And I think even with books, if you have a book idea that you have just been holding on to, and it just won't let up off of you, it can feel like it's a precious thing, right? It can feel like something that you don't want to drop, you don't want to mismanage, you don't want to rush through, and I think there is a beauty in that, and also if we can hold those things with a little more flexibility, a little more perspective that they're things that have been given to us, but they don't really belong to us. And this might seem like super spiritual, but I'm just in a place in my life where I'm realizing like everything that I have in my life was given to me anyway. And it's been given to me to steward, like even my body. I know a lot of us at the top of the year were focused on wellness, and I used to be like very, obsessed with fitness. I don't know how else to say it. And I use the word obsessed there because it went from something that was about me being healthy to something that became unhealthy because I lost the perspective and the joy in what it was I was really doing, right? And so even at the top of the year, a lot of people thinking about wellness, and I'm interested in people who are talking about it from a place of stewardship, versus like perfection, and also having grace for the people when I hear them talking about like they're like they've got this goal and that goal. And again, I'm a very goal driven person by nature, so I love a good goal, and I do think there is a place for goals in our lives, and I think we're being given an opportunity with every season that we're in to say, how can I do this thing in a way that is honoring and creates space and spaciousness to let this thing that has been given to me to steward, let it breathe. And so even in my wellness journey right now, I'm in a place where every single day I'm waking up and I'm just saying, God, like, how do you want me to steward this body that you've given me, well, so that this body can do all the things that you have intended it to do in this life that you've given me. I don't think stories are any different. God, how can I steward this book idea that you've given me well? How can I be responsible with it without holding so tightly to it that I forget that it was something that you gave me to begin with? How can I steward it well in a way that I am working towards and taking the steps towards getting it to a place where it can get birthed out into the world with integrity, and it can become a book, and it can go from an idea to a book that can impact people? Like, how can I steward that well? How can I be responsible for what you've given me without becoming obsessed with it? I don't know. I'm not sure if this is what I had intended to talk about today, but it's where we went in this conversation. My commitment to this project, the Story Up Project, is to show up 5 days a week. That's my commitment. Am I going to get it perfect every week? Probably not. But that's my commitment, to show up 5 days a week, to hold space for stories, to breathe, to hold space to talk about the role that stories play in our lives, the stories we tell ourselves, the stories of others that we interact with, and how do we then take these stories and how do we create space for them, but also steward them well. If we haven't met, or if this is our first time meeting, my name is Marina. When I'm not here on YouTube and I'm not out there doing the things that God has called me to do in the world that go far beyond the work that He has called me to, you can find me and my team over at www. That sounds so weird. People still say www. You can find us over at fullcirclepress.org, where we are passionate about and committed to helping purpose-driven people take the stories that they've been given and turn them into books that make a difference in the world. Thanks for hanging out with me today. And I am just, again, I'm grateful for this space. I'm grateful for this time. And I will be back again next week. What are we talking about next week? I have no idea, but I do believe that somewhere in the shower, out walking, on my morning walk, in quiet time with God or in engaging with other people in the various ways that I will have the opportunity to engage with them, I think I'll be given another idea, and I will be back here next week. Have a great weekend. If you're watching this anytime close to when it was recorded live, have a great weekend.